I want to ask you something. How many of you remember your kindergarten years? Like kindergarten, first grade, second grade? Okay. One of the craziest things about these ages, and I work with these ages in community kids. We have Sarah, who is a teacher professionally. She has a kindergarten class, and I don't know how many of you are teachers. But one of the craziest things that you live, or one of the biggest challenges, if I say, in kindergarten and up, is finding friends. Because actually, when you are in preschool, it's like the kids fight, but the kids kind of love each other, and they forget that they fought, so they play again. Actually, I was having a conversation yesterday with my sister-in-law, and I was asking, both of my sister-in-laws have boys, and they're both the same age. So I was asking one of them about her boy, because he started school, and I was like, so how is Enzo doing? And she's like, oh, he's doing so good. And I'm like, yeah, does he have friends? And she's like, he has 2 friends. He comes every day and tells me that his friends are, I believe it's Zachariah and Marcelo. So it's Zachariah and Marcelo. And that he always comes, and sometimes he even plays, and he grabs his toys or even through a book, and he's like, look, Zachariah and Marcelo, like those are his friends. He was never taught how to make friends. He's only 2 years old. Okay, it's not like he went to an intensive of how to go to school and find friends or make friends. He just made friends. But once you reach out kindergarten, once you start going to the cafeteria to go have lunch, you guys, I personally think that that's one of the weirdest feeling ever, or very awkward, which is, can I sit with you? I don't know if you remember. Maybe some of you guys have trauma from that word. Can I sit with you? Because the answer has the power to change your whole heart, okay? Your whole behavior and your whole elementary school years. Because if you go with your tray, you are already shaking because the tray is very heavy, okay? You already are so nervous because you don't want the tray to fall. You guys, you're just walking there, and you don't even know, because maybe the schools here are so big that you can maybe know people, but they didn't make the same lunchtime. So you're sitting with a bunch of people, or you're there with a bunch of people that you don't know, and you're just there with your tray, and you ask the question, brave. You're already thinking, and you're like, okay, this is what I'm gonna ask. Okay, I'm ready. And then you're with your tray, and you say, excuse me? And then they turn around, can I sit with you? And that answer has the power to change your destiny. I'm kidding. But that power, that answer has the power to really make or break that day. Because if they say yes, that's it. You made a friend. You're like, so that's it alone. But if they say, no, I'm waiting for my friend. Guys, kids that age are cruel. Or maybe honest. And if they don't want to sit with you, they're going to tell you the truth. No, I'm waiting for my friend. Or no, I'm saving the spot for someone else. When you are in preschool or even elementary, a yes means a lot. That question, and if you're taking notes, today's teaching is, can I sit with you? Because it's hard, you guys. It is hard when you receive the no. It's hard because we're all wired to relate to each other. And sitting alone, eating your lunch alone, it's weird. Sitting alone, eating your lunch by yourself makes you look different. Obviously, if you're at school, I remember the kids that will sit by themselves alone. You know what I also remember? That I never even thought about going and calling them to sit with me. That's sad. But I remember specifically a girl that will sit every day in the cafeteria by herself. I came here when I was 13, and they made me go to middle school with my brother, even though I was supposed to go to 9th grade. You know why? Because I was little. We went to the school, and the school principal for the high school saw me, and he told my parents, he spoke Spanish. Kind of spoke Spanish. So in his little Spanish, he tells my parents, ella chiquita. She's too little to go to high school. They will eat her alive. Let her do a year in middle school. You guys, I was in middle school with my brother. I mean, how crazy is that? And since then, I remember that girl in middle school sitting by herself. And maybe that was you. Maybe you were the one that was sitting by yourself. Maybe you were the one that asked the question, maybe not exactly the same, but maybe you asked the question, can I sit with you? And they said no. And the thing is that we are all wired to relate to each other. It is not normal just to be alone. But some of us, we choose to be alone. Why? Maybe because we feel bad, maybe because we haven't found friends, or maybe because we feel very shy. And unfortunately, when it comes to the practice of community, when it comes to the practice of fellowship, in this day and age, the biggest challenge is connectivity and chemistry. The biggest challenge when it comes to be in fellowship is connectivity and also chemistry. Why? Because connectivity is mistaken for community thanks to Instagram, to Facebook, to Snapchat, and other social medias, but it will never replace the face-to-face need of a dear friend. So we think that we have communion because we spoke to our friends through Snapchat. We think we have communion and we are in fellowship because she DM'd me and I DM her back. We DM each other's outfits. We're buddies. That will never be true community. For us, that we know, that we have had the privilege, the honor of having community, you know that an Instagram post and a thumbs up doesn't mean a friend. Sometimes I'm telling stories to people. It happens to me all the time with Alfredo, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know my friend, she had twins. He's like, which friend? And I'm like, oh, it's not really my friend. It's a girl that I follow on YouTube. But I'm already like, she's my buddy. She doesn't even know me, you guys. But I talk about her like she's my friend. But is she really my friend? Because when I'm having issues, she doesn't even know my name. She doesn't even know that I follow her, but she's my friend. I'm like celebrating her twins, you guys. I'm like, you know that they're gonna go live in Puerto Rico? They bought a place and they actually made it. And Alfredo's like, oh, okay, who is she? And I'm like, it's a girl from YouTube, you know. And we have mistaken community and connectivity. I'm sorry, we have mistaken community for connectivity. Just because you're connected to someone, in this case with this girl who just bought a property in Puerto Rico, and it was completely, it was a disaster, and they made it up and they built it, and it's so beautiful. Just because I connect with her story, it doesn't mean that we are having fellowship. And so many times we think that we are having fellowship, when in reality, which is one of the biggest challenges, we're just connected to someone. And then there is the second challenge, and the challenge is chemistry. And it's another obstacle that we face. Why? Because while we may have chemistry with others, we might not have community with them. You might not be able to have community with someone, even though you have chemistry. Even though maybe if you sit down with a person and you listen to their story, you might say, wow, me too. But when you're not willing to sit down, when you're not willing to say, yes, come sit with me and listen, that is a huge obstacle, because you might never be able to know and enjoy what it is to have community if you don't know, and you're not able to know that there is actually chemistry in the relationship, that there is so much that you have in common. You guys, when it comes to immigrants, I feel like we have so much in common. I came when I was 13. I know what it is to come with each of us with one suitcase. You know how I know? Because right now I'm living that way. We are doing some remodelations in my house, and Alfredo left for his sabbatical. The week that we were, you know, the week that we were building the house, the week that I had to deal with 5 workers inside my house. He was riding horses, of course. Yeah, and I love you. It was everything prepared, right? So on Wednesday, the workers come. It's 5 people, you guys. And I'm just like a little girl here. And I'm like, hi, sir. Hi, well, we're coming, whatever. They come, they start like ripping off all the, walls and thing. And I'm just like, where am I going to go? And I'm like, so can I come tonight and sleep here? And they're like, well, señorita, like, lady, if you want to, you could come. I have some people that actually come and sleep. And I'm like, oh, perfect. So I just have to disappear and just come. When are you leaving? And they're like, we're leaving like at 5:30. I'm like, perfect. I'll be here at 6. I just go do my stuff. You guys, Alfredo's not here. I'm going to the mall. I'm buying like 5 coffees. I'm having lunch outside. I'm not cooking. I'm living my life. I go pick up the kids and I go hang out with a friend. I'm like having the time of my life. And I come home, you guys, at 5:30 on a Wednesday night. The house is a mess. It is impossible to stay there. So from that day, from Wednesday until this day, today, I'm in a suitcase. Actually, my suitcase is on the other side at Community Kids because I came in pajamas. No, I'm kidding. I mean, I took a shower, obviously, but I changed in the other side because I don't have a house. Tonight. We received a message this morning. The house is ready to live there tonight. But anyways, the point is that I know what it is to live, to come to a completely different country, new language, okay? And everybody with one suitcase. I had my suitcase, my brothers had each its own, and my mom and my dad. That's how we came to this country. If you sit with someone that has lived the same and you're willing to share your story, trust me that you can look at the other person's eyes and say, me too. When we give ourselves the space to know that there is so much chemistry between human beings, that there is so much that we have in common, is that we are not willing to practice that community. And community is deeper than connectivity and chemistry. It is the commonality as followers of Jesus to live life together in exposure and in encouragement, to develop who we are in Christ. And I want to show you guys some pictures. When I came to this country, fine. This is me right here, you guys. Oh, so cute. Haven't changed a bit. Okay. Let me tell you something. When I came, I was 13. I developed a sickness in my stomach when I was 13 and a half. I was already here in this country, and my stomach started hurting like crazy. Like sometimes I will even vomit. So my parents, without insurance, took me to the hospital, to the ER or whatever. There, they refer me to a doctor, which is pediatrician, and they do some exams for me, and they say that I have gastritis. But the question that I will never forget in my little English that I had is that the doctor asks my mom, has your daughter lived something traumatic? Because it's not normal for such a young age to have gastritis, because usually when that happens, it's because there is high levels of stress. And my mom is like, what? She is freaking out. I developed gastritis. I took pills for over 6 months because I was depressed. I was 13 years old, and all I knew was taken away from me. My parents made the decision to come. I mean, we were excited. We thought, United States meant go to Disney World every day. Yeah, right. When you come here, you go to these big schools. I had such a bad, first, experiences in middle school that I was so scared. And you guys, it was so hard. But then the Buffaloes made the whole difference. You might ask yourself, what are the Buffaloes? That was my Connect group. I remember that we were listening to the only Spanish radio, besides another one that I'm not going to name because you guys might not even know, but it was a Christian Spanish radio. And they said, if you want to see this singer or whatever, a Mexican singer that she's now a Christian, come to us. And it was this church and another church that they were getting together and bringing this singer. This is 22 years ago. And we go as a family. And when we go as a family, we get to know Jesus, whatever. We receive Jesus. I was 13 years old. And they take me to this men's group. His name is Milton. You guys might have seen him around church. He's still at church. He still looks the same, and he's like 70. I'm kidding. I don't think he's 70, but he was very adult here. And if you see his face today, he looks the same. I'm like, what happened to you? But he was the leader of the Buffaloes. And all of us, we all lived in Hollywood. So, as you can see. So, okay, so we were all from Hollywood, from Miramar, and we all went to these high schools and middle schools that we knew each other. So, for example, we went to the same school me, Natalia, Janice, I still remember them. They're all in their 30s now. Jennifer, she's a worship singer now. And all of these people, we were the Buffaloes. This, you guys, saved me. Because at school, I didn't have friends. At school, I was mostly alone. Because I had my friends, my buddies that we came from the same country, but we were not paired the same for the lunch. So what happened is that someone chose to break the ice. And when that happened, my life changed because I immediately started having friends. And they all lived the same. They would all, share the same thing. Like, oh, I remember. Oh, yes, I had this. Someone laughed at me also. Oh, what happened to you? Well, this happened to me. I didn't understand. We became community. And what happens when you choose to break the ice? Questions like, can I sit with you? Because that might be you today that has to ask that question. Can I sit with you? Because you have been alone for a long time. And maybe the question that you have to ask to break the ice today is, can I sit with you? Or maybe you are the one that needs to make space so someone else can sit. Or maybe you are the one that needs to see the need and invite someone to come sit with your group. God is calling you to take a step of action today. Because you can be in one of these three categories. In the category where you're the one holding the tray, because it hasn't changed, you guys. It hasn't changed. Until this day, we can be in our 50s and still feel this same awkwardness. Can I sit with you? Or maybe you're the one that needs to see the need and say, hey, come, we're a whole group here. When 10 people eat, 11 can eat. Come sit with me. Or maybe you're the one that says, yes, come sit. We might be a little squish, but here's a little space for you. Come sit with me. And when that happens, when we choose to break the ice, the first thing that we discover is that the journey to healing is not done alone, but it's done in community. Because this is what happened. We can go to the next picture. The journey to healing is not done alone, but done in community. This is our baptism. That happened after I went to group for like 4 months with the Buffaloes, because we had animal names. We have come a long way, Alfredo. We have come a long way. Thank you so much. Because before the groups were named after animals. So I was a buffalo. This is Pastor David, believe it or not. This is me, my brothers, my dad, my mom, Pastor Kike, my youth pastor. Healing happens when we are in community. It happens because my gastritis was a consequence of stress. And when I started having friends, when I started to have a place where I could go sit, laugh, when people started noticing, how come you can't eat that? I remember that I had a friend who became one of my best friends until this day. She asked me this question because the group was at her house. And she asked me, how come you can't eat that? And I'm like, oh, it's that I have gastritis. In Spanish, obviously. And she's like, oh, wow, what is that? Oh, it's this, and that. You know what happened? The next time that I went to group, her mom had made me a completely different type of sandwich. Because healing, it's made through community. A second thing that we can discover is that the center point of following Jesus is not the pulpit. It's not about you grabbing the microphone or you being on the stage, but the body and blood of Jesus, where we come before God and each other to lay our souls bare before Him with vulnerability and accountability. When we are able to come together, when we are able to gather together, look at each other face to face, and have accountability and vulnerability, fully present to one another, we learn to listen. It's where we develop the joy of being heard and being understood. We can go to the next picture. I was able to open my heart and share with people face to face. So then this happened. Because, our nights were themed as well. Youth in the 1990s. Oh my gosh, where am I? I'm actually not there because I'm taking the picture. But this is Milton, again, as you can see. This is my brother, Jonathan. Alfredo was already here. Oh my gosh, guys, believe it or not, that's him. You guys, I have the coolest pictures ever. And it's so crazy because with most of them, I still talk to. I actually married the guy here. That's what happens with community, is that you start seeing each other face to face. And James 5:16 becomes a reality in life. You know what James 5:16 says? Confess your sins to one another, and you will be healed. Healed. When you are able to open your heart to one another, freedom and breakthrough happens when we confess our sins with one another, and we are vulnerable in relationships. And that can only happen when you start making the steps, when you start saying yes. What happened here, as you guys can see, if you really know me, you know that it's me. You know how I started serving when I was 14 years old? Making the signs for the events. I didn't have a microphone. I didn't even get to organize the chairs. I didn't even get to be a welcoming girl. Like, oh, welcome. I made the signs. But I was so happy. I was so happy because I was able to sit with her, Casey, who was my maid of honor, who married Willie. And I remember that she was the first person that knew that I liked Alfredo, but also the first person that knew that I had gastritis. Was also Buffalo's group in her home. And I remember that as she was one of the leaders, will sit with me as she was telling me what to write, and we will talk about life. Because that's what happens when you start doing community. You start being transparent. And in small groups, you start being transformed. People can be real and authentic with one another, especially about their struggles. And I don't know what your struggle is today. What I can tell you is that we're all struggling. That's the reality. We're all struggling. We're all going through something. But the Bible is clear. We can grow. We can heal. We can go to another level and dream when we are in community. And the question remains the same today as it was way before when I was 13, 14, 15 years old. The question is, can I sit with you? Do I need to make space for someone else to come? Or, hey, come sit with me. We need to make a decision. I love this story in the Bible, 2 of Kings, and I'm almost finishing, but it says, Elisha helps a poor widow. And listen to what it says. It says, one day the widow of a member of the group, she was a member of the group, and in the middle of being a member, her husband passed away. Her biggest pain and grief, she was living it with someone, with a group. Because the Bible doesn't say that if you become a Christian, life will be perfect and nothing is going to happen. No, but it says that when we confess our sins, we can be healed. That there is power of being in community. Jesus taught us that. He was with 12 people all the time. And you know what? I don't think that Jesus could have done it without them. I don't think that Jesus could have done it on earth. When we speak about emotions and when we speak about soul to soul, he needed them. He needed to speak to someone. He needed to hang out with someone. He needed to break bread with someone. And it says that one day the widow of a member of the group of prophets came to Elisha and cried out. She cried out. She was vulnerable. She was honest. She said, my husband who served you is dead, and you know how he feared the Lord. But now a creditor has come, threatening me to take my 2 sons as slaves. What can I do to help you? Elisha asked. So tell me what you have in the house. Nothing at all, except a flask of olive oil, she replied. And Elisha said, borrow as many empty jars as you can from your friends and your neighbors. I love that the answer was with her friends and her neighbors. Who are your friends and who are your neighbors? Because I think Alfredo said it like 2 weeks ago or a week ago, that maybe we don't even know the names of our neighbors. Maybe we haven't even thought about asking our neighbors to come into our house so that they can have some cafecito with bread. But that can make the whole difference. You might be sitting here saying, Stephany, I feel alone. I've been feeling alone for a long time, but maybe it's your chance to open up your heart. Steph, I don't have anything. Dude, if you have bread and cafe, you have everything. To be able to sit with someone and share life. Listen to what happened. It says, borrow as many empty jars as you can from your friends and neighbors, then go into your house with your sons and shut the door behind you. I love that he included her children. Do it with them too. Put them to do it. Serve it, because ministry and fellowship is not just for adults. My kids, I know that they are who they are because of the friends that they have. And with so many girls, if you guys see, go to my social media and you guys see my kids and the parties and the things that we do, it's all community. Is that we were struggling and we were measuring bellies 12 years ago. Is that we were praying when they told Marge that she needed to abort David because they couldn't find his heartbeat. And we were all praying like crazy on the phone. I remember she's screaming like, Steph, they're telling me I need to give up this pregnancy because they can't hear the heartbeat. And David is 9 years old on the other side. That's community and fellowship. Listen to this. So she did as she was told. Her sons kept bringing jars. Bring me another jar, she said to one of her sons. There aren't any more, he told her. And then the olive oil stopped flowing. When she told the man of God what had happened, he said to her, now sell the olive oil and pay your debts, and you and your sons can live on what is left over. Through friends and neighbors. You know what's the craziest thing? That their friends and neighbors also had empty jars, just like her. You will never know the struggle of your neighbor if you're not willing to sit with someone. You will never be able to bless someone if you're not willing to break the ice. If we're not willing to say yes. Learning to lament another's grief is an investment in your future sorrow. I think that those friends and neighbors were investing in their future sorrow because that lady, her husband passed away. I think that she felt how I felt on Wednesday when I didn't have a husband and I had 5 men coming into my house to change my whole house. I was like, where is the checkbook? But she was investing. Dallas Willard says, and with this I finish, if you decide you want to become a person of love in the ways of Jesus, don't start by trying to love somebody close to you. Start by trying to love somebody you don't know very well. A coworker on the other side of the office, a neighbor one street over. Because the closer we are to someone, the harder it is to love. We see through the illusion to who they really are. And they see through the illusion to who they really are. And I think God is calling us to do that today. To look to the sides. Oh, is that my coworker looks super cool? He always comes with a Starbucks cup. But they might have an empty jar as well. And I think that today, out of my heart, I just want to tell you that I don't even know, I keep on saying, but I don't even know, 1999, you do the math. Since 1999. Oh, 22, thank you, Marvin. Not only he plays the keys and sings, he does math really fast. Love you. And has the cutest baby. Is that it works. Is that it works. And I know that if I could give you the microphone and you can share about your stories of community and struggle, I know that you could say the same thing. It works when we're able to open up and say yes and break the ice. And today I just want to ask you, what's your next move? That's all. What's your next move? How can you break the ice this morning? Maybe it's through a text message. Maybe it's through a hello, you can come. Or maybe it's through searching the website at church and actually find a group that you can go to. Steph, but is that I don't know anybody. I know. But you felt the same thing in kindergarten and you didn't die. Just go. Sit down. Someone will open the space so that you can sit. And trust me, it will make a difference in your life. Steph, I'm having this thing in my heart. I really like to bake. There is no baking groups here. Should I do like a baking group? Where I open my house and I bring girls and men, I don't know, whatever. Alfredo likes to bake. Bring them in and I can like teach them how to make banana bread, the good one, just like Savannah makes it. Makes my heart happy every time she makes it. And do you think that could be a group? Yes, it could be a group. You know why? Because as you are making the things, you're laughing. And as you're laughing, you're talking about chocolate. And as you're putting those good chocolate chips that you put in that banana bread. Oh, I want some banana bread. Okay. As you're doing that, maybe someone will share their story on how maybe they never tasted chocolate or never liked chocolate. And maybe you might look at her and be like, oh my gosh, me too. And that's how I discovered to bake. And as you bake and everybody takes their baking goods, you can go home and give it to your husband and say, here, this is what I did today at group. You know what could happen? That your husband might say, wow, is there space for me? Can I sit with you? Because that's how fellowship and transformation happens.